Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, Algo artisans. It is 8:30 a.m. EST, and the data just came out, and the charts are very interesting looking, to be sure. Looks like this trade ended up, just by virtue of the data this morning, doing really well. I shared this with Algo Factory yesterday, and I didn't expect for it to take off like this because I did not expect for the data to push it like this. I just, you don't know what the data is going to be. And wow, geez, wow, that's massive. That is massive. And this is the kind of stuff I share with Algo Factory. And, I was looking for a pullback before I took this trade. Pullback I got. But it just, on a week like this, when there's such little volatility, the problem one can kind of come across, if you will, is that price can wag a lot on the low time frames. So I really wanted to see, price develop a little bit more of a support before heading up. And then this data that just came out, I mean, we're looking on the 3-hour chart. So if I were to go down to a lower time frame, I mean, this is a massive candle, big candle. That's a god candle, man. I know that's on the 30-minute time frame, and that's not an extremely low time frame. And interestingly enough, you can see that my algo called this right before, on the candle right before. Just keep that in mind. Now, we did get a little bit of intel on the data that was going to come out, and looks like it was the intel was not correct. The non-farm employment change showing dollar strong. Interesting. And yet the market is moving in the opposite direction. So the earnings were down slightly, but the jobs added are massive. And the unemployment rate is a bit lower than expected, about 5% lower than expected. Unemployment claims lower than expected. So that should be like dollar strong news, right? Well, that's our NASDAQ right here. Let's zoom in on the NASDAQ and see how that was affected, because that's a pretty strong data. That kind of data should be pushing price around a fair amount. Let me head here. So NASDAQ headed down. Yeah, that's dollar strong news. So NASDAQ seems to be not able to break above the noise here. This is on a very low time frame, though. I mean, if you back out a little bit, look at the algos, it's still bullish on a higher time frame, right? But it may be that what price needs to do is to just gather a little more power in this area. As a matter of fact, when you're trading, what you'll see here is you'll see price tend to kind of create these patterns where it heads up and then like this, and that usually means price is going to break down at some point, because this is a slowdown in momentum. You have a massive momentous candle right here, and then it's just kind of a slowdown on the way up. And depending on the entire picture, this can mean the price will break down, but it also speaks to a higher time frame momentum. So if I were to guess what's going to happen here, if I were to forecast on the NASDAQ, we're going to look at Bitcoin next, so stand by. Yeah, I think we're just going to get a minor pullback on the NASDAQ, just enough to kind of gather some liquidity. The place that makes the most sense from the charts is right here. I don't think it's going to go down to 22.5. It could. But if I were to also look at, then that's based on what we call inside structure that's back behind the most recent price move, right? So the most recent price move is right here. And this bit of structure on which I base that is right there. It's behind the price move. So it's not quite as relevant as the most recent price move. So I'm going to use some data here. We're going to do the same thing for Bitcoin as well. And we're going to do this. Now, the most likely place for price to go is right here, where it basically went, where all this volume is. And it makes a lot of sense just based on the chart. But if price were to break below that, that's going to be tricky. I still think that what I drew here is appropriate, but what we can do is we're going to carve this data up a little bit. And this is let's just say proprietary. Yes, I mean, the most likely place for the like if the pullback goes below 22,780, that's 22,780, it would go down, I think, to 22,700. Now, it may not go down there at all. Things are pretty strong. What we might see is just kind of a consolidation here, perhaps a bounce off here and up. And that would go into like next week. Of course, it's the NASDAQ. It could go a lot faster than what I drew. As a matter of fact, the moves down in recent history have gone faster than what I've drawn. So it might be that, we see a little more precipitous of a move down and then a move back up, right? But I'll tell you what, that move on the USD JPY, I was in a trade prior to this move, and it was like a kind of a small trade, and it knocked me out of the trade before this move up. So I would have profited nicely. I was just kind of scalping. What I try to do before news events is I try to kind of get myself into a trade, and then I put the stop loss to where I won't lose any money. And then if it goes in my direction, it goes. And it barely knocked me out of the trade. In fact, I think it was by design, because, and again, I don't really share these trades very publicly, but I was in a trade that looked like this. Initially, it was I was doing well here, but it looked kind of like this. Let me back this up a little bit. And so I was ahead, right? So it was actually, I got in early. I got in like right here. So I was nicely ahead, price looked good. And then it came down. Now, as I had a rotation in price based on the algos, what I had done was I had moved my stop loss to entry, basically, right? So what did price do? Came and knocked me out of the trade before it went up to hog heaven here. So I would have done pretty well. But, these are the risks we take. And rather than losing any capital on a wild, potentially wild trading day, I went ahead and just said, hey, I'm going to conserve capital with a stop to entry, and that's the end of the game. Let's look at Bitcoin. Yeah, so Bitcoin going to act like NASDAQ. So Bitcoin going to head down based on this data. Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's dollar strong news. So look, if the data coming out this morning is going to be like, hey, the economy looks good and we're adding jobs and all the unemployment is not a big deal, and that's going to push prices on assets down against anything that's based on the dollar. So stocks, it means the dollar is going to get strong. Obviously, USD JPY dollar got very strong right here, right? So EUR USD, that would go down because the euro got weak against the dollar. The dollar got strong. AUD goes down. Gold in this case, wow, big move down on that. So with that said, let's look at oil really quick. Oil not even really moving, just doing what I said it would do. Silver pulling back. Yep. So that's how that works. NASDAQ relatively unaffected, which is impressive. So let's look at Bitcoin and what's probably going to happen. It's still strong in the high time frames. The pullback that we see today may be just kind of limited. If I were to just look at the areas where it could go down to, it's probably going to have a hard time getting down below this consolidation right here. So if it goes down below 106, or especially if it goes down below 105, like, to 104.90, that's when it's like, okay, we're, expecting maybe a move down. Now, this is something that normally would take several days to happen. Now, there's one caveat to this, as my friend Velas would say, caveat emptor. If you go back historically on Bitcoin and you look at holiday weekends, Super Bowl Sundays, 4th of July, you name it, crazy moves tend to happen when nobody's paying attention. And think about this. There's such a thing as market makers. Market makers, I talked about them yesterday in a private video, which I accidentally made public on YouTube. I've now made it private, so a handful of you guys got to see it. And market makers, they do, to some degree, they put guardrails around price, and they will push price in certain directions and things like that. So long story short, the market makers make a lot of money by putting price in certain areas. It can be rather expensive to do that when there are a lot of traders in the market. depending on the situation, there are some times when those traders can be taken advantage of and they'll move the price for you. But when there's not a lot of traders in the market, it can be rather cheap to move price around just because no one's going to trade against you, right? And people are going to panic. A lot less of the smart money is going to be in playing. A lot less money in general is going to be like in playing on a 4th of July weekend, right? It's Friday, everybody's partying. So if you're going to take advantage of retail and you don't want them to jump on the bandwagon, or you don't want them to maybe cancel their trades before you can run through their stops, then you push price around. Now, what can that mean? I mean, look, I think it would mean one of two things. Price would either be crushed downward to some level, probably above 105. So maybe, we see the rest of today just kind of go like this. It might stay pretty calm. Who knows? And then Friday comes along and maybe price comes back up or not. I don't know. And then right around Friday at midnight, all of a sudden, right? No, maybe not this far. Maybe just down here. Maybe down here just enough to get some people to panic and get their stops ran. That can happen. The other end of it is if for whatever reason things are bullish, then it might go the other way, right? Where people, are not expecting it and price just gets pushed up, right? So that all these things can happen. So if you are very serious about, what your Bitcoin's doing and you're a trader and you have positions maybe on some of these exchanges, I'd be just understanding that you might wake up on the July 5th with, a surprise in your portfolio. It might be good, might be bad. So that's conservation of capital is important for traders. People who invest, you believe in something and you think it's just going to go up, then chances are you're better off just leaving your money where you think it's going to go up. Especially with Bitcoin, most people who've made the most money on Bitcoin have just held it and not traded it. And that's how I treat crypto anymore. I just buy it. I trade forex and I put the winnings into crypto, and I generally leave it in crypto. I did pull a lot of crypto out earlier this year when price was not much lower than it is right now, because it just, and I was correct for a short period of time when when everything went down to 75K, when Bitcoin went down to 75K, all the rest of crypto drained out, and most of crypto has stayed drained out. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at more of these things, but we're going to do so over in the Algo Factory private live lab. So look, you can get a free algo. Just go get links in the description. I know the crowd's kind of quiet today. A lot of people probably taking today off. But if you're watching this, just go to the description, click the link, give us a real name, fake name. We don't care. None of that matters. We'll send you immediately an algo right away. It'll be the next screen. And then what we're going to do is we'll continue to let you know when we're having, say like workshops or other items like that. I do put out like a weekly update. And so I'll let you know when that comes out, things like that. So we'll hope to see you over there. And then we will be back next week, Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. EST, as always, right? That's always what we do. So give me a second here. I got an issue with some tech. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. So as you go into your weekend, enjoy yourself. Make sure that you just maybe take a break. We all deserve a break. If you're sitting there just grinding away in the charts when, you should be just having fun, just try to have a little fun. Protect whatever positions you have, and then just go along with your life. You might find that actually works out better for you. And also, don't forget,
join us or die.
Just kidding. You're not going to die. That's just, that's just old Alan Rickman having some fun with us, right? So don't worry about that. We'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching.